Empiricism and Rationalism. Empiricism is the doctrine that all knowledge has a strictly observational basis. Rationalism is the doctrine that at least some knowledge has a non-observational, purely conceptual basis. In the present work, empiricism is carefully considered and found to have four dire shortcomings. 1. Empiricism cannot account for our knowledge of what does not exist, let alone for our knowledge of what cannot exist. 2. Empiricism cannot account for our knowledge of dependence relations, this being a consequence of 1, coupled with the fact that the statement P depends on Q is equivalent with the statement not Q either necessitates or is dispositive of not P. 3. Empiricism cannot account for our knowledge of the past, the future, or the possible, this being a consequence of 2, coupled with the fact that knowledge of any given one of these domains presupposes knowledge of dependence relations. 4. Empiricism cannot by itself apprise us of any truths at all, this being a consequence of 3, coupled with the fact that knowledge of conditional truths is necessary to recognize truths implicit in any body of sensory data. The arguments of key empiricists are closely examined. Special attention is paid to George Berkeley's argument for idealism, this being the doctrine that to be is to be perceived or conceived. It is shown that although Berkeley's arguments fail, profound insights are embedded in the very sophisms that vitiate those same arguments. The three most important ones being A, that data modeling and truth identification at least sometimes coalesce, B, that scientific theories are at least sometimes capable of being represented as interpreted formal calculi, and C, that when theoretical terms are defined contextually, as opposed to directly, otherwise unintelligible assertions acquire scientific significance. Further, it is shown that even though Berkeley's arguments for idealism fall through, he himself deserves credit for identifying the principle in terms of which the fallacies in those arguments are to be understood. Namely, it is not sensory experience alone that yields awareness of the outside world, but sensory experience coupled with awareness on the subject's part of relational invariances holding among the objects of those awarenesses. Thus, perceptual knowledge is knowledge of invariances. And, to make a point hinted at in Berkeley's work, knowledge of laws is meta-perceptual knowledge, this being a consequence of the fact that laws of nature are invariances holding among the objects of perception.